you just do double tap down, 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 blah, 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 blah. Super easy Tekken for anybody. Ladies and gentle people, feast your eyes on the Hori Fighting Stick Alpha, this time for the PS5. I've actually checked out this same model arcade stick, but for the Xbox Series consoles. Now we have the version for PS5 with all of the PS5 buttons and things like touchpad. A lot of arcade sticks don't actually flip open anymore. You have to like unscrew the base of it. So I was quite excited about being able to maintain the stick, fix buttons, and rewire things easily by just flipping it open, and being able to change the artwork easily, because a large number of arcade sticks in the PS4 generation, there weren't that many arcade sticks that actually flip open like this, so you can actually just take a piece of paper out, put a different piece of paper in, and have a new stick art every day if you really wanted to. Let's just pull open these tabs and actually get the controller out of the box. I believe it opens like this. Time to get the Fighting Stick Alpha PS5 version out. Just throw the box over there, check that. PlayStation 5 Fighting Stick Alpha. Let's actually open up the stick first so we can get rid of this ugly bit of paper. Ew, gross. What is this? Oh, it smells bad. Obviously, on the left side, you've got the all-important arcade stick. I believe this is a Hori Hayabusa arcade stick. It's not a Sanwa joystick, but personally, I actually really like this. This is the one that I use in the Hori Fighting Edge. It's not a very heavy feel, it's quite light, but I like the feel of the switches in it. I feel very confident that I've definitely reached the direction that I'm trying to input into the game. Next to the lever, we have the all-important buttons. There are 8 of them, and this is standard for most fighting game controllers because most games use this 6-button layout here, but they also have 2 buttons available for your macros, things like dashing or throwing or activating things like V-skills and V-reversals in games like Street Fighter. If you're interested to know, these are also Hori-made buttons, and the reason is that 1, it's cheaper than paying a different company to use their buttons, but 2, they've done things to these buttons to kind of improve them. I've got lots of arcade sticks that use these buttons, and personally, again, I really like these buttons, but you can't buy them separately, so even if you like these buttons and they kind of break in the middle of a tournament, going out and finding Hayabusa buttons to replace is kind of a faff. In the corner you have the options button, but I think this button is actually lockable, so actually if you turn on tournament mode here with this lock switch, this will actually become inactive in the middle of games, so you won't accidentally pause the game in the middle of a tournament. On the control panel along the top, you've got the standard stuff you would have on a PS5 controller. You've got the PS Home button, you've got the share button. I don't know what the function button is. That's probably a Hori specific button. We might be able to reset these buttons and lay them out in a different way so we can cheat, not cheat, but we can also try out some funky things. And for things like resetting the stage in training mode, you've got the L3 and R3 buttons. This switch here is just for going between the PS4, PS5, and the PC modes. I'll just give you a little turnaround so you can see the side of the controller. It does have on the left side a jack where you can plug in a headset. It doesn't have non-slip padding in the middle, which is a slight disappointment, but it's not the end of the world. But something that is quite cool is it's got these nice, discrete handles, so you can actually hold the controller when you're in the middle of a tournament and you're not actually playing at the time. Often you have to hold your controller, and sometimes you just have to hug your controller because there's just not very much space. I will say one thing that's a shame about these grips is that when you're holding it naturally with your arms like this, as you can see, it's not showing off that fancy artwork. You may have installed some really nice artwork on your arcade stick, but when you just hold it naturally with your arm like this, it actually shows the base of the controller to the world instead of the fancy artwork side. But now it's time to check out the coolest feature about this arcade stick, which is the clamshell. Something that most arcade sticks don't do anymore, being able to open up your stick like this at any point so that you can maintain it. Another thing about the Fighting Stick Alpha is that the cable is actually stored inside this clamshell, so usually you don't have an opportunity to show everyone that your arcade stick opens up, but now, just because you need to open it up just to get the cable out, you'll have plenty of excuses to like show that your arcade stick is a transformer. If you want to unwind the cable, you do it like this. Now, personally, one of my criticisms about the original Fighting Stick Alpha was that when you're unwinding the cable, there's like no way to do it without bouncing up against these quite important cables down here. That's quite a satisfying clunk. It does feel a bit like a car. Definitely one of the things that I like about arcade sticks is just turning the whole experience of playing a digital video game into a more physical experience, a more mechanical experience, a more hands-on tactile experience, and having your own like machinery that you have to take care of before you go into a match. It just feels a lot more James Bond. So, it's time to plug it in and see how it performs in some fighting games on PS5. Alright, as you can see, I've got the PlayStation 5 set up. You can see I'm controlling it with my DualSense controller here, but let's actually take a look at the Fighting Stick Alpha. I'm going to press the home button here to get ourselves logged in. And it'll show up with a little menu. Logged in, and as you can see, now I'm controlling the PS5 with the Fighting Stick Alpha. Now, spoiler alert, a lot of the stuff you're going to see in this video is going to be very similar to a previous video I've done, because this stick here, for the Xbox Series X range of consoles, most of the features and the build quality and everything on this is going to be exactly the same as this. So in training mode, just testing out the arcade stick, if I press left, right, up, and down, everything is going exactly as I would expect. I have heard from other people that they prefer parts that are a little stiffer and that they feel like the Hayabusa is a little bit loose. Personally, I feel like the Hayabusa feels a little loose on the RAP, but on this stick and on the Fighting Edge, it feels a little bit stiffer. I don't know if that's just a psychological effect, but this is a preference thing. And more importantly, if you do feel like you want to change the lever out on a controller like this, you can open it up and remove this and install other levers that are stiffer. As for the buttons, it's the same story again. It's the same as what you would expect in the Hori Fighting Edge. Now, as you can see, everything is as expected. I can do my instant air dashes, I can do runs, I can hit the buttons, I can do simple combos. I guess the only other thing that I should probably point out about the lever and the buttons, which of course are the most important aspects of an arcade stick, is that this is using a layout which is, I don't know if this is specifically a noir layout, but it's a noir style layout where these buttons go up and then they come back down again. And as a result, these buttons are really close to where you need them to be, and you never need to like reach your finger up to press other buttons. Being for the PS5, it has a touchpad. You don't get that on the Xbox version, but on PlayStation, one of the useful features in fighting games is being able to use the touchpad to reset the stage. Guilty Gear Strive being an Arxis game, it does have handy features like being able to hold down up while pressing the touchpad, and it will set you onto the right side of the training stage. Now, in addition to the lever and the main buttons and the touchpad, you also have an L3 and an R3 button here. Now, I've just reviewed other arcade sticks that don't have both L3 and R3, but the reason that's quite useful to have both is that when you're in a game like Guilty Gear Strive, you can actually go into your button settings and you can set things like play and record. So if I set play here to L3 and I set record to R3, then when I go and press R3, I should be able to go into recording standby, press it again, and then I can record my dummy doing some kind of interesting combo that I'm trying to learn how to block against. Then when I press L3, I can play that recording back, and then I can practice defending against whatever maneuver I recorded into the dummy earlier. Now on the Hori RAP, you would have to actually turn the controller over to the side and press a bunch of buttons over here to the side, or you would have to kind of fumble for the buttons without looking. It's just like, okay, I think 1, 2, 3, the third button along that was R3, and so I'm very grateful that L3 and R3 are right here on the front panel of the controller. But there's one button here you may not have seen before. It says function, and this is actually a Fighting Stick Alpha specific button, and it's actually really useful, because if you hold down this button and you press up or down, then you can see you go through different colors on the profile light over here. So I'm in profile 1 is green, 2 is red, 3 is blue, and 4 is white. So just to give you an example of what that actually does, I'll go into profile 1, and I've just got my normal controls, punch, kick. But if I hold down the function button and press up like this, I go into profile number 2, and now I've got kick and kick. Then if I swipe my fingers from one button to the other, I can almost guarantee that I'm going to get like a single frame gap in between these two buttons. Or you might find ways to do something similar, but swiping across the buttons like this. And remember, these buttons are really low profile, so swiping your fingers over them is really easy. Plus, they've got a matte finish on them. PS home button, I click this and I go into the PS5 menu like so, press it again and I can get out of it. What Hori's done in order to make sure that you don't accidentally press pause in the middle of a match is that they've added a tournament switch, again, right here on the front panel, which you don't press, you have to slide it. So you actually put your nail in this button here, you slide it across, and you can see the lock light has come on, and now pressing the options button does not activate the pause menu. This is the audio headset. Often when you're playing with an arcade stick, it's right up against your body because you don't want to be too far away from the controls and you don't want to be extending your arms out like this. Now you've got this wrist rest, which is right up against your body, and that means if there were a headphone jack here, you wouldn't be able to plug it in without bending the cable a lot or having it jab like into your stomach. So hats off to Hori for making sure that the headphone jack is here on the side of the arcade stick. Alright, so we've tested out the controller a little bit, but one of the coolest things about this controller compared to the previous generation of the Hori arcade sticks is that it does have software that allows you to make 4 separate custom profiles, which you can change on the fly and do things that are technically not tournament legal. So to use the software for customizing your Fighting Stick Alpha, you go to the Hori website, you download the free app, it's called Hori Device Manager. Select your controller here, you press cross to go into the menu, and as you can see along the top here, we've got 4 different profiles, and the first profile is just the basic layout that you actually see labeled on the controller here. But if I go over to profile 2, you can actually see that I've changed a bunch of these buttons. So square is now cross, triangle is now circle, and R1 has become R2. So I'll just press cross again to go into the options, click on button mapping, and now you can see that I've got free reign over all of these options here, except for the D-pad. You can't change that. It looks like all of the buttons can be set to all of the same things, including, weirdly enough, the touchpad and the options button. But what's really cool about this is that you can have complete customization over this. You don't just go in here and say, I want the square button to also be a cross button. It doesn't unmap the original cross button. So now I've just got 2 cross buttons instead of a cross and the square buttons being reversed. You can also set buttons to directions. So touchpad and options buttons, that's going to be completely bonkers, but something you can do, which might make this controller kind of cool for some cheats, is you can set the cross button here to actually be up, or you can set it to be down. Now, I don't actually recommend playing like this normally because it's not probably tournament legal, and so when you go into a competitive scene, you're not technically going to be allowed to use these shortcuts. Just want to see if I can do easy electrics again. If I just set my R1 button to be forward, like so, R2 button to be the other direction, so I can do it on both sides. Let's back out of here and let's see if profile 3 makes electrics easier in Tekken. Oh, actually, now that I've got right on the R1 button, I don't even need to press forward on the lever. I could just go button, down, buttons. Yeah, this should be much easier. It's going to take some getting used to, but it's definitely easier than trying to do it perfectly like this. And you would just get it into your muscle memory. When you want to do electrics, you just use your R1 button here. Now, the other thing is Korean backdashing. I guess just by having buttons set to directions, you can do stuff that you can do on all button controllers, like tapping backward to do a backdash. But of course, if you just press it over and over and over again, you've got a massive delay in between each dash because the game is set to not let you do it too many times in a row. But if you cancel the backdash, so you go backdash and then down, then you can cancel the animation and go straight into another one. I think if I just double tap it like this, like that, I could be able to potentially do really fast backdashes. That's insanely easy, right? Because you just do double tap for each backdash, and of course, if you don't want that gap in between each one, you just do double tap down, 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 blah, 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 blah. Super easy Tekken for anybody. This controller allows the settings to be built into the profiles. I can actually unplug it from the PC and they'll be saved in these profiles, which means that it's not just when you're playing online. It means that you can take these little shortcuts like easy Korean backdashing and you can actually bring it to tournaments with you and just plug yourself into the PlayStation, and no one is going to know unless they're watching your controller. Of course, if they're watching your controller, they'll know instantly that you're doing something kind of cheap. Alright everyone, it's time to summarize my thoughts on this, the Hori Fighting Stick Alpha. Basically, there's very little to dislike about the Fighting Stick Alpha. In many ways, it's completely similar to the previous sticks that they made, like this. This is the Hori RAP, and you know, it's got, I've put different buttons in it now, but it's the same thing, you know, a lever, buttons, and a bunch of options buttons on the side. But, crucially, the big difference is you can't open this stick up. Not easily, at least. You usually have to get a screwdriver and undo a bunch of screws and then pull the whole thing apart. But the Fighting Stick Alpha, it's got a very handy mechanism right here where you just pull on this buckle, slide lever here, and then you can open the whole thing up and you can have very quick very easy access to things that you might need to do, like changing the wires or completely taking out buttons entirely, or accessing the cable which is stored in here, or changing the lever. As a workhorse arcade stick, this does actually tick pretty much all the boxes. But really, I think the main thing about this arcade stick is that it's the spiritual successor to the Mad Catz TE2 Plus. The Mad Catz TE2 Plus was definitely one of my favorite arcade sticks because you could change the artwork in it and it was a good shape. The thing that I've never really liked about the RAP style of stick is that you don't have a lot of wrist rest space, and although you don't always want to like lock your arm in place, when you're playing on a lever, it is very nice to have a good amount of space here to rest your arm on, and also have a good incline so that if you're tilting the controller away from you, it's still comfortable. The Fighting Stick Alpha brings us back to that golden age of the Mad Catz TE2 Plus, where you've got a basically square-ish 4x3, 3x2 shaped box here, which is perfect if you're going to be doing stick art, and that's kind of one of the main draws to this new style of stick that they've made here, is that you can put your own art in here and make it look really customized to what you like. And then on top of that, the fact that you can open it up really easily, that's something that was one of my major issues on the RAP, and even my probably favorite arcade stick at the moment, which is the Hori Fighting Edge. So for me, it doesn't feel like an upgrade to their previous arcade sticks, but it's also not a downgrade. For me, it's very much a side grade, and they've just changed their priorities. They've gone for this plastic box construction, which is still weighty enough that it doesn't shift around on your legs, but it doesn't feel as nice to hold because it's just not as solid. Even when you're just pressing the lever itself, it does feel kind of hollow. You can feel the whole box reverberate. But by going for this lighter plastic construction, they've been able to give you the clamshell design, the changeable artwork, a bunch of cool new features using their Hori device manager so you can have multiple profiles. So it just feels like a different lineup of controller, which I kind of wish that they had released alongside their previous controllers. But I don't actually know what the plan is to do with their other lines, like the RAP or the Fighting Edge, because if they stop making these ones, which had really nice aluminum construction, if they're discontinuing those sticks and then they're going to be only making these ones, then it's like, but I kind of preferred that heavy-duty construction feel. So those are my final thoughts on Hori's Fighting Stick Alpha for PS5. It's not an upgrade, it's not a downgrade, but it's probably got a lot of features that you will prefer over the previous generations of sticks. And I guess the main thing is that it's just good that they haven't increased the prices of their arcade sticks. So like for the new generation, we need more expensive sticks. They've gone for the exact same price, but they've just changed their focus and priorities on which features people are going to really want. And you know what? It's kind of nice to have a slim version of what I kind of see as the spiritual successor to the Mad Catz TE2 Plus. Anyway, that's all I have time for today. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, to click that like button, comment on the video if you're interested in this stick specifically, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can follow me on Twitter. You can join us on the NihongoGamer Discord if you want to chat with other people who like the topics that I cover on this channel. So that's all for now. I'll see you in the next NihongoGamer video.